Morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on what time you are tuning in. My name is Rachel Goldsworthy, and today, the second episode of Get Started, the podcast designed to feature interviews with industry leaders, strata managers, sharing thoughtful discussions and spirited conversations, and all in the hope to bridge the gap between people, processes, and the best outcomes for everybody, offering real solutions for those within the strata space. And today's episode, I'm really looking forward to having Tim Sara with me. He's the group licensee in charge of NextGen, and a conversation that isn't all about doing and doing it all. It's also not about pretending that it's easy. It's about how becoming a parent forces clearer thinking about work and also boundaries and what actually delivers good outcomes in strata. Tim Sara, for those many would already know, he's well versed and very well accomplished within the strata space. He's the group licensee in charge at a NextGen Group, and that's Australia's sixth largest strata management company, overseeing Strata Choice, O'Connor's Strata, Strata Ease, and he's involved with a lot of different panels and interviews, I know. With more than 16 years' experience, Tim blends statutory compliance leadership with deep expertise in client retention and operational reform. All sounds exciting, doesn't it? He's very good at it, though. He regularly contributes to industry panels, publications, and professional forums on governance, service delivery, and the future of strata management. So without further ado, I welcome Tim Sara, bringing him onto the screen now for you. Hey, Tim, how are
Hello,
you?
good afternoon. Great, how are you?
I am fantastic. Fantastic to have you on board here. It's been a busy week, a busy lead up for you for the end of the year, but I just wanted to have you on the show because I think that there's lots to talk about in the strata space and a lot that people don't know where to start. And the conversation of juggling a newborn and the professional role in strata as you've done. So, I mean, as a parent, parenthood faces you to think about things differently. What have has there been some situations that you've had that made you think about what the juggle looked like and what the priorities were for you?
Yeah, I mean it's been a wonderful, wonderful journey so far, and I've just had another little boy who's now about 5 weeks old, so I'm having to sort of go through that thinking all over again. And yeah, there's a lot of things that, particularly in strata management, are really crucial to us. Time management and AGMs, for example, at night is a real big one. I know a lot of parents that have had to rethink how they handle that, but they've handled it really well. Working with clients to shift times and things like that. So it's possible. I've seen plenty of people do it before, and I've done it myself, and I'm happy to be here today and talk a little bit more about it for others.
Oh, that's fantastic. What's your little boy's name?
Jackson.
Jackson. And what's the best thing about being a dad? Anything to do with
Oh,
strata other than you going a succession plan for strata for you.
I think it's that change that it forces you to go through. Nothing could have prepared me for parenthood. I think, you read the books and you sort of try your best to prepare for it, but when it all starts, it just changes you for the better in so many different
Mm.
ways. And that's something that I've really enjoyed about it. It's taught me to be, more patient. For example, I've got another little boy who's 2.5 years old, and that's certainly a lesson in patience right there. And you don't necessarily get that experience in other means of life. I don't care what people say. It's nothing like owning a dog. It's it's
So what do they say?
just
Own a dog or a plant, and if you can handle those, then you can handle a child, a new
yeah,
baby,
yeah,
or what have you. Nothing like it at all, is it?
yeah, exactly. But it's great because it teaches you things that you would never have learned otherwise.
Yes.
And it just like I said, it just forces you. Once you've got a baby, it's just like, okay, I don't have a choice now. I have to learn these things. I have to be more patient. It's not a nice to have anymore. So there's one
No.
thing that I've enjoyed. It's that sort of transformation.
Yeah. And has it sort of made you rethink your after hours work and your processes and priorities with what you may be doing?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you don't like I said, you don't have a choice when you've
Mm,
got the kids at home. You have to make dinner for somebody else. You
mm,
can't just sort of push that out. When I was younger, I might be sitting there late at night in the office, having a microwave meal or something like that. Well, you don't have that option anymore. So you're forced to rethink these things. And a good example, like I said earlier, was AGMs.
mm,
I don't do as many of those for
mm,
clients these days in my current role, but I know other strata managers that have had to had conversations with their clients to say, look, I'm no longer going to be available
mm,
at for a 6 o'clock start, for example. Now, ideally by this point you've built up a relationship with your clients enough that you can have this conversation and actually shift to say a 4 p.m. start,
mm,
uh, and have a level of understanding. But I have seen on the whole that that's worked quite well, is clients accepting that, look, if I want this particular strata manager that's very talented and very good, then that's just what comes with it.
mm.
And I think that the funny thing about that is, I guess most people don't realize that strata managers aren't just attending the meeting. They're maybe there for the 60 to 90 minutes, but there's also the preparation that goes into it. There's the follow up that happens after it.
That's right.
Personally, when I used to run AGMs, I like to do my minutes afterwards while it's fresh in my head. And so,
Mm,
if you're having every AGM at 6 o'clock, 6:30, it's not just one late night. That's a 12 to 14 hour workday.
mm,
Once you do all the other things during the day, like emails and calls and meeting prep and all of that, and
mm,
eventually, if you do that for too long, particularly as a parent where you've got other things waiting for you at home, then you've got the risk of burnout. Burnt out strata managers don't deliver good service. They deliver slow responses. They make mistakes. They eventually leave the industry. Everyone loses then. So I think we have to move away from normalizing this
mm.
idea that strata should run outside of business hours. I mean, we don't expect that from other professionals. You don't book dentist appointments at 6:30. You don't
No.
have meetings with your accountant at night. You don't see your mechanic. Expect them to stay back after a full day and do a consultation. So,
And yet
for
here
me
we
and
are
for
talking
others,
about it, isn't it? It's
yeah,
very topical because it does happen quite often to people. They get put in these situations, and sometimes it's
yeah,
a process and also a discussion, as you said, and it's a learning curve for those people new into the realm, and learning how to have those spirited conversations and how to manage that with loved ones behind the scenes, and what's the priorities within your life as that juggling the new fatherhood.
mm, yeah, exactly. I mean, look, I love my work and I love my
Yeah,
family, and sustainable
yeah,
boundary allows me to do both well. That's the
yeah.
bottom line.
I think so. It's just having the boundaries for the professional standards, not a personal preference. I think it's so important because it's one thing that I sort of learnt later in life, and it's so great that you can do that because it's almost very freeing because no is also a sentence.
That's right. That's right. An underused one at times.
I think so. I think so. And tell me a little bit about the processes because if somebody was going to say, okay, well, I'm going to have that meeting at 4 o'clock and not at 6 o'clock,
Yeah.
is there things that they would need to bring into play? Like if somebody was listening to this and going, well, that's impossible, Tim. Like there's no way I can do this. I've got 7 meetings on this week alone. What would you say to them? Because it is challenging sometimes facing that mountain going, okay, well, I've got 7 AGMs, but do you have software, the support? Do you have the AI whilst you're doing the meetings? Is it going to be reliable? Those sorts of things. So speak to that and what your
Mhm.
experience is and what your people are doing out there in the field.
Well, yeah, there's a lot of different tools that you can use. Hopefully, you're not doing, 7 a week, but sometimes it can get that busy. I mean, a lot of strata schemes, for one reason or another, have a financial year that ends 30 June, and so strata managers are very busy in August and September.
Mm,
So, one of the things that you can do really well is practice. If you're new to strata, for example, practice running AGMs and get good at your spiel. how you explain each motion. How can you explain it so quickly that people understand it? Are you
Mm,
over explaining? Sometimes we sit there explaining motions that we don't really need to. Could have
mm,
just been read and people understood it. So, for example, instead of explaining a motion, you might say, "Does everyone understand it? Do I need to explain it?" Uh, Pre-reading ahead of the meeting, encouraging people to do that. So, making sure that in your meeting notice, for example, you say, please read this agenda in detail before the meeting so that you can ask questions ahead of the meeting. Because during the meeting we won't have time to give individual answers to every single question.
mm,
Uh, Summarizing with AI, just be careful. You've got to get people's consent before you record them in meetings, but most people these days are totally fine with that. And then there's some really great tools like one of them's like Strata Vote, for example, where you can populate the agenda, and
mm.
during the meeting you can actually indicate the outcomes of motions, and then by the end of it you're actually done your minutes. Back in
That's
the day
right.
I used
Before
to
you even get
sit
home.
there and type them out. Yeah, exactly. Or you can do even pre-meeting voting or online voting mid-meeting, and that way the outcomes are done for you. So yeah, I think practicing for me, practicing is probably the best one, and you do get better over time with the pitch that you give, so to
Mm.
speak.
Do you get any resistance with that, like with electronic voting or with the polling or with pre-population, or is there any concerns that people
Mm.
experience from what you're doing out there, or?
I think sometimes people resist change at first,
Mm,
and that's no different for anything in life, whether it's the use of technology or not. But if you make the effort at the beginning of the meeting to take people through it, like I'm reminded of one strata manager who uses um, the StrataVote technology really well, and she makes the effort at the beginning of each meeting to really take people through the login process and how to cast their votes. And
mm.
just by doing that, she makes it easier for people to get it right, because when they start to get it wrong and it doesn't work, they get frustrated, they get flustered, and then they just give up and throw their toys out of the pram. So, but she makes a really great effort at sort of taking them through that process, and therefore people are less likely to resist. Whereas I've seen others that didn't take that couple of minutes at the start, and then dealt with frustrated people, and then everyone just said, "Oh, fine, we'll just go back to the old way," and they're still using the old way because it's just too scary. So,
Mm,
just
mm,
taking a step back and you know walking
mm.
people through it, and get to know it yourself first.
That's what I was going to say, because if you don't have that level of confidence yourself in what you're doing, how can you possibly bring people across to that way of thinking? I know when COVID hit, the Zoom was big and everyone's thinking, no, this is not possible. Why are we going to be having meetings online and what can you do? And but it's been wonderful, because we wouldn't be having a conversation like this. We wouldn't be hosting a podcast that would normally be auditory only. You wouldn't have the visual side of it, and you wouldn't have all the other technology that we're lucky enough to be graced with. So I think it's wonderful.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
COVID. If anyone's wondering what it's like to become a parent, COVID was a good example of forced learning. We were forced to learn video technology, and it was awkward at
Yes.
first, but we now get it, and so yeah, great
Yeah.
example.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And
Yeah.
does parenthood expose weaknesses in systems and procedures within a workplace when they're challenged?
I Yeah, like I think it does. It exposed. I don't want to say weaknesses. I mean, my approach pre-parenting, I could sort of brute force things. I could just put in the hours. I could
Mm,
do late nights and that sort of thing. Whereas I don't have that choice anymore, and so I've had to
no.
learn very quickly to take a different approach, whether that's to pace myself, or to manage my energy better. So I think so. Yeah, it can expose some things within you that.
Mm,
Um, and look, for me, that wasn't necessarily a problem. I will say, like for me, I was more than happy to, do the 7-day weeks and stuff like that. But
mm,
what I realized was that I hadn't learnt that skill sooner, and I could have. I
Mm.
chose not to because I didn't need to. Now I'm forced to.
Forced to.
It probably would have been nicer to learn that back then,
Possibly.
but yeah,
We
yeah,
all live and we
exactly.
learn, don't we? And
Yeah, that's right.
tell me, with the pace, you're talking about pace. How do you regulate your pace, and what brings you back into alignment to what you're doing in each and every day of your work process and fatherhood process?
It's prioritizing.
Mm,
Number one, you have to now get very clear about, okay, I can't do everything.
mm,
There are, you know, I used to be able to do everything. It
mm,
didn't
mm.
really matter. But now it's okay. Well, I have to choose what to do and what not to do. So you mentioned before, like saying no, and I've actually got that written at the top of my phone here is say no. Um, and
It's a good one, isn't it?
it's
It
it's
took me
yeah,
years to learn it. Let me tell you.
yeah. Like so, I was listening to Alex Hormozy talk about this recently, and he was talking about um, the mindset of like billionaires, for example, and it's what he referred to was the anti-routine. So there's a lot of talk about morning routines and how to optimize and things like that.
Mm,
And the truth is that what someone with a billionaire mindset does is they have to say no to things. Um, what a lot of people don't realize is that with that sort of mindset, you have to be able to say no to certain comforts as well. So
mm.
sleeping in, for example, you have to be able to say no to that. Uh,
Well, it's daily
so
disciplines, isn't it? It might be
yeah,
okay once a week or once a month or whatever the time frame allows if you're on holidays or something like that. But you have to, as you said, prioritize and pace yourself in some way.
yeah, exactly. So am I going to read this book, for example, or am I going to sit on the couch and watch Netflix? You have to say no to one or the other, and it's really what do you choose to say no to. So,
Mm,
look, strata management is not an easy career. And for people looking to get into it, if you're looking for an easy career, it's not the one for you. But
fun.
uh, if you learn how to say no to the right things, then it means that you're saying yes to the right things, and so you're therefore prioritizing. You're choosing constantly between, okay, these two things are really important, but which one is more important than the other? And then focusing and putting your time and energy into that.
Mm,
Speaking of energy, I mean that's another crucial one too. It's like
true.
putting time and effort into exercise and sleeping and eating well and things like that, because I know that if I prioritize those things, that it will pay dividends because I will have more energy and more focus in the rest of the time that I have. So
Mm,
choosing the right things,
I
really
think
really
so.
important.
I think so. And also, too, sometimes you probably, like all of us, at different times, sometimes you feel motivated to do something and sometimes you don't. And so, when you have those systems in place, whether it's that daily energy level of exercise or whether it's eating the right things or whether it's drinking water or whether it's setting the meeting and the intention for 4 o'clock versus 6:30 p.m. so you can spend time with your wife and your two boys, I think that those key points just really hit it home and make sure that you're in the right space and you can have a good year ahead.
Yeah, exactly. And you touched on it as well. The systemization and routine, so important,
Mm,
particularly in this line of
mm,
work where there are so many different things, so many tasks, so many different administrative duties as well.
mm,
If you can, and one of the things I often train strata managers around is set and forget. So I might be working on something today, and I'm not going to remember in 2 weeks' time to go and chase that thing up. So just setting myself a basic reminder, whether it's to follow up a work order or to, chase up a response from a contractor that I know isn't going to get back to me. I don't have to put that mental load on myself
no.
anymore. Or whether it's, monthly routines, for example, of planning, client AGMs and having a routine around, okay, I'm going to, send out my notifications to everyone about the date, and things like that. Just little things,
Mm,
lots of little
mm.
things.
Even on the AGM before, sort of setting a date for the AGM ahead and putting it in your Outlook, and simple little changes that you can make that can really, yes, you've got to give the notice within that 6 month period that it's coming up or what have you. But equally, I think that it's important that you just make it easier on yourself, because if it's there's too much friction in anything, we just end up not doing it. If the gym is 2 hours away, you're not going to drive to the gym. If this kids school, school, or the lessons for the swimming is too far away, you're not going to take them for those lessons. But if you can make things closer and more accessible and easier to do, it makes those daily things that you're doing to get to that optimum, I think, much easier, and
Yeah,
also better for everybody. Your energy levels are right up there and topping up your cup, as you were saying before.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, exactly. This
yeah.
type of work needs a lot of energy, and so you got to manage that
It
really effectively.
it does, and what makes Strata work emotionally demanding, do you think?
Well, you just look at the nature of what you're doing every day. There's complaints, there's conflict,
Mm,
there's a lot of fear as
mm,
well. There's a lot of frustration in it. I mean, you are dealing with people often, often at their worst. If you're dealing with someone that's got a burst pipe or a leaking roof or something, or a fire or a flood, you're dealing with people, in a stressed environment, and
mm,
so you can only absorb so much of that. Uh, you can be as stoic as you like about these things, uh, but it can take its toll on you. So being, I guess, calm in these moments, or at least calm enough to be effective when it matters.
mm.
These are the things that are really crucial in strata management. It's yeah, not an easy job, as I say.
No, definitely. How long have you been involved? 16 years, was it?
I celebrated my 16th anniversary yesterday.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did somebody take you out for a big lunch or a big dinner or something? Really? Did you get the gold watch or something?
No, no, no. That's no, not
Not quite.
unfortunately not. But look, I've got Christmas coming up, and my beautiful wife to spend time with, so that's good enough for me.
Yeah, that's lovely. And tell me, what has being a father made you improve in your strata practice? Obviously, we talked on time management and priorities, and just making sure your energy levels and you're doing those daily disciplines. But what was it in particular? Is there anything that's helped you improve that practice?
So when you're dealing with a 2-year-old, you have to get much better at communication. Uh, 2-year-olds, there's a common phrase, the terrible twos, as people call it. And essentially, what's happening in the mind of a 2-year-old is they're starting to learn language, learn communication. They're not that good at it yet, though.
Mm,
They're still figuring it out, and so they can feel certain. And they're also learning emotions too, and learning how to communicate themselves at those times. So they're not always so great at taking what's in their mind and putting that out into the world. So you have to be quite good at understanding them. And I think that a lot of adults didn't quite emotionally mature much beyond this point in their lives. I think that there are some people out there that kind of reach their emotional maturity at the age of 2 and just plateau,
and just that's
and
it.
that's it, and still throw tantrums and struggle to articulate themselves, and
I was
uh,
going to say, I think that some
regulate
adults are still
themselves.
like a 2 year old, because, and
Yeah.
often they're not, as you say, articulating what's really going on. They might have had a fight with their partner. They might have had a financial situation. They might have had a flood or a fire, as you said. And it's the heightened level of stress that just brings out the worst in people that you were mentioning. So, so true. And then that
Yeah.
2 year old comes out.
Yeah, exactly,
But now
and it
you're
still does.
very well versed in playing with 2 year olds, and you're able
Sort
to
of.
manage the
I'm
landscape.
still figuring it out. Yeah, but yeah, but it's been fascinating to kind of look at that and go, yeah, like the reality is, if you expect everybody to behave well all the time, then
Mm.
your expectations are going to be too high. It's like I often use the analogy, there's, I think, a billion drivers in the world. There's a billion people that can drive a car.
Mm.
Okay. And if you think that all of them are going to be great drivers, then you're going to have a seriously bad time on the roads, right? So the reality is there's a few shitty drivers out there. Uh, there's no escaping it. And so what you have to learn how to do is what I learned years ago is driving defensively. It's actually, if you ever learn how to ride a motorbike, they teach you how to drive in
Yes,
or ride in such a way that you don't get yourself killed. And it's not
that's
because
right.
you're driving like an idiot. It's because other people around you, sitting there nice and comfy in their air
Mm.
conditioned car, flicking around with the radio, not necessarily looking at what's going on around them. And then all of a
Not
sudden they change
paying
lanes.
attention to
And
the
if you're
detail.
riding a motorbike, you're the one that's going to
Yeah.
die. It doesn't matter,
Right,
like,
yeah.
who comes, oh no, there was an accident. It's like, no, you're dead. So you have to learn how to drive. And it's the same with communication. You,
Mm.
in strata management, have to learn this skill because at the end of the day, if all you do is complain about the way that other people behave or the other way that other people communicate, well, guess what? That's going to happen in this line of work because you are dealing with the general public.
Yeah.
So rather than fixate on and get upset by the fact that there are a few rude people in strata, there are people that are difficult and demanding and frustrating, um, you can either put your time and energy and focus into complaining about that,
Mm.
and that will do nothing to change the circumstances,
Absolutely
or
nothing.
you can get really good at communication or better at it at least and start to handle these people in a different way. And you can start to perhaps deal with the person who's rude or aggressive. And maybe you can change their behaviors, but maybe not as well. Maybe all
Mm.
you get good at doing is just learning how to not let that affect you as much.
Mm.
When I first was in strata management and someone was rude, or I would let that affect me. Whereas now, after many years of experience, if someone is disrespectful or rude, then I don't necessarily react to it in the same way. I have the
No.
skills now to be able to, for example, terminate a phone call if someone's using abusive language or things like that, or to chair a meeting and to shut that meeting down if
Mm.
there's no control in the room and I can't eject the person from the meeting. So these are things you learn in time, and yeah, I think have learned as a result of some parenting as well. It's like clearer communication, less tolerance for unnecessary drama. You know that happens in 2 year olds and it happens in adults too.
I've also got this friend, when we all go away on holidays, she always says, now, if you all get lost, I'm going to put my hand up right in the middle of the Trafalgar Square or wherever we are, and everybody will know where I am. And we're all sort of laughing, thinking, this is ridiculous. We're all 50-year-olds, and why are we going to be doing this? But okay, no, we'll go with this. Thank you very much. We appreciate that. And literally, it's the best thing because when we're all in this crowded place and the hand goes up, we can see the hand without the flag, and everybody knows exactly where they've got a beeline to make sure that they make it to the next location.
Should just
So
tie a balloon to her.
I think she'd do that as well because it's always fun and shenanigans when you go away with friends and family, isn't it?
Well,
Yeah.
it works with 2 year olds if they're walking around a park or something. Just look for the balloon.
Yeah, absolutely. And talking about balloons and people and committees, tell me what you think about the new training with what we're heading towards with governance and, just modelling healthy governance for committees.
You mean the requirements for them to be
Mm,
trained and qualified? Yeah,
that's
it's an
right.
interesting one. Um, I so in my former before I became a strata manager, I was actually a lifeguard, so I had to learn the first aid course and
You and
and
me
um,
both. I
you know
didn't know that. Where are you a lifeguard at?
there you go. Well, I was at a Lane Cove pool, so
Ah,
not
there you
surf
go.
life saving. Yeah,
Ah,
it's like
yeah.
a
I
place
was
where
surf
people
life,
do
so yeah.
laps, and so you're just watching people do laps. But I remember doing like the first aid course and the RSA and other
Oh,
courses like that,
yes,
and
yes.
and a lot of the time, you did these courses, and even if you didn't learn,
Mm,
you still somehow passed because there was someone there at the end to kind of guide you through it. I think I think that committee training is well intentioned. I think that it's going to be pretty easy for people to get the certificate. I think there's also concerns around, is it going to push people away? Like it used to be, if someone was just willing to volunteer, that was enough. Whereas now you're
Mm,
going to have to ask the question, well, have you got your certification? And I think that'll rule most people out.
mm,
Um, on one hand, that might, I guess, rule out the people that maybe didn't contribute as much and, were just taking up a seat and not voting and therefore making
mm,
it hard to get a quorum. But on the other hand, I think it's also going to take away from people being willing to, have a go in the first place. So I think we're going to start to see much smaller committees, and I think the people that are going to join those committees are going to, um, I think, start to, demand pay.
mm,
That's where I think this is headed. I think we're starting to head towards committees acting a bit more like a board of directors. You don't, necessarily join a board unless you're getting paid to do it.
true.
And I think we're going to start to see the rise of the professional, committee member who, might do it, who might say yes, but at the end of the year, I want to be able to be paid a $10,000 honorarium, which they can do under strata law. And I think that perhaps, in some cases that's actually justified. Well, I
Mm,
remember years ago I dealt with a committee member that was kind of like a building manager, and he used to get paid an honorarium that was the equivalent of his levies, about $16,000 a year. And what he did was he produced a report that said, "Here are all the activities that I've done throughout the
yes.
year." There were some concerns. People started getting upset. Why are we paying this guy so much? So I sat down with him. I said, "Well, here, do a report for them, a basic report that actually shows all the value you've brought." And so he started doing that, and the owners at the meetings then started going, oh, "Okay, fair enough. Well,
Mm,
$16,000 isn't a lot when you consider the building manager starts at about 50, and he's doing all this work." So I think we might start to see the rise of that.
mm,
Uh, is it a bad thing? I don't think so. I think it'll drive up accountability. I think if committee members are making poor choices, then they will get voted off, just like they do a board. But all this,
mm.
theorizing of mine, I think we're maybe a decade away from, to be honest. It'll take a long time before it gets to that point, but that's kind of where I think we're headed.
Maybe, but maybe sooner, because once people realise the work that's actually involved in being a committee member, in an active committee member, and making a difference to their strata plan, I think that you're right. I think we will head down that path of there. I mean, I remember back in the 90s, there was a real estate agent in USA. His name was Rick DeLuca. And he wrote different things, that activities that he did, similar to what you were talking about. And we in
Mm,
our office as well have at every AGM, there's percentages of changes and what you're doing for, what you're being paid for. But he wrote down literally every time he listed a property, all of the activities he was doing. And we started doing the same sorts of things, because I think everybody thinks, oh, you're a strata manager, it's easy, just you turn up to these meetings and you do a few minutes and then you go away and then it all just magically happens. Well, as you and I know, there's a lot involved behind the scenes, not only with what we do, but also with the strata committee. So if you've got a list of, and I think we worked out there was like 80 different activities that we were doing behind the
mhm.
scenes that people may or may not be aware of. So if you're making that clear, as you said, the communications there with your strata committee, with your lot owners, with the general public, that you are humans, you do have families, you are dads, you are mums, you are brothers and sisters, and you want to get the best outcome, but you've also got to work towards that in a way in which it's possible for everybody. And yeah, it takes the pressure off everybody. I think if you all pitch in as well.
Yeah, having the ability to explain your value proposition
Mm,
can be huge in
mm,
strata management, in a
mm.
in a space where we talk about, the strata fair is taking care of things magically.
It is the Strata Ferry, isn't it? Talking about
Yeah, yeah,
Strata Ferries, if people
yeah.
wanted to find you, Tim, how would they do that? And what's the best way to get in contact with you? Because obviously you're very good at what you do, and somebody may need some extra help with different things that we've spoken about today.
Yeah, sure. Honestly, best thing to do would just be to Google my name, Tim Sara. That's Timsara. I'm, often on LinkedIn as well. So if you look me up on LinkedIn, I'm there, as most people are these days. So those are probably the two easiest ways to get in touch with me.
No, fantastic. Well, I've popped his name down on the crawler below, so hopefully everyone can see that. I will pop a link in there for Tim, and I really appreciate your time today, Tim. I know that it's probably challenging prioritising all the right things, but certainly Get Strata is very happy having you as part of the second, or you are the first guest, as it were, as a Strata manager, as a group licensee. So I'm really privileged to have that, and you've done a lot for the industry over the years, over the decades, and I appreciate you and appreciate everything that you're doing. And keep being you, keep topping up your cup, and I hope to catch up with you on the next video very soon.
Thank you. It's been a real honour to be on, and I wish you all the best with it. And also, Merry Christmas and Happy New Year too.
Absolutely. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to you and your family and the new little Jackson. I can't wait to see photos of him. And have you got a little Christmas photo for everybody?
Yeah, yes. Just did the Santa photos just the other day, actually. So yeah, that'll
Was
be
that
finishing
fun? Was
off
that
now.
like hours of fun, or was that
That
screaming
was
and,
great.
and
No, it was great. It was fantastic. Yeah,
was
just
it?
my 2-year-old Hunter's just starting to learn about Christmas and all that. So it's really great, really enjoyable.
Oh, isn't it
Yeah,
lovely? Yeah, yeah. You see so many good things that are happening out there, and I think it's the kids that keep it alive for all of us, isn't it?
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Santa
it's really
is
great.
real.
It's really great.
All right, then, Tim. Thanks again. We look forward to catching up with you on the next episode. Bye for now.
Bye bye. Bye.
Okay.